I still remember the exact moment everything went silent. 12 highly qualified interpreters had just walked out one by one, all of them failing in front of the same man, the same test, the same impossible expectations. And then somehow, unbelievably, all eyes turned to me. The janitor. I was standing there with a mop in my hand, my uniform stained, my shoes worn out, and my heart pounding like it was about to break through my chest. And when I opened my mouth and spoke, everything changed. Tell me honestly, if you were in my position, would you have stepped forward or would you have stayed quiet and let the moment pass? My name is Daniel, and at the time, I was just trying to survive. I was a single dad raising my 6-year-old daughter, Sophia, in a tiny apartment that barely held together during winter. Life hadn't exactly been kind to me. My wife had passed away 3 years earlier after a sudden illness, and ever since then, it felt like I was running a marathon with no finish line in sight. Every day started before sunrise and ended long after midnight. I worked 2 jobs, one as a cleaner in a large international corporation downtown, and the other doing small translation gigs online whenever I could find them. But those gigs were inconsistent, and honestly, most people didn't even believe me when I said I could speak multiple languages. They saw a tired man in cheap clothes and assumed that was all I was. What people didn't know was that my childhood had been unusual. My father had been a diplomat, constantly moving us from one country to another. By the time I was 18, I had lived in 8 different countries and picked up languages like other kids picked up hobbies: Spanish, French, German, Arabic, Mandarin, Russian, Portuguese, and English. They weren't just skills to me, they were pieces of my identity. But when my father passed away and my life collapsed into survival mode, those skills became something I kept hidden, almost like a secret. I didn't have the energy to prove to anyone. The company I worked for was massive, the kind of place where executives wore suits that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I cleaned their offices, their conference rooms, their hallways, quietly moving through spaces where I didn't belong. Most employees barely noticed me. Some were polite, others indifferent, and a few treated me like I was invisible. I got used to it. You learn not to expect much when life humbles you that deeply. One morning, everything felt different. There was a kind of tension in the air, like something important was about to happen. The main conference room had been prepared meticulously. Polished table, fresh flowers, water glasses perfectly aligned. I overheard whispers that a major international deal was on the line, something involving partners from multiple countries. They needed an interpreter who could handle several languages fluently, and apparently it was proving harder than expected. I was cleaning just outside the conference room when the first interpreter walked out. He looked frustrated, almost embarrassed. A few minutes later, another one came out, shaking her head. Then another, and another. 12 in total. Each one had been vetted, tested, and supposedly qualified, but none of them met the boss's expectations. The boss, Mr. Carter, had a reputation. He was sharp, demanding, and not someone you wanted to disappoint. From what I could hear, the issue wasn't just language. It was nuance, cultural understanding, the ability to switch seamlessly between conversations that involved more than just words. He needed someone who didn't just translate but truly understood. I tried to keep my head down, focusing on my work. It wasn't my place to get involved. That's what I kept telling myself. But as the tension grew, so did something inside me, a quiet voice reminding me of who I used to be, of what I was capable of. Then it happened. The door to the conference room swung open, and one of the managers stepped out, looking desperate. His eyes scanned the hallway, and for a brief moment they landed on me. I immediately looked away, pretending to focus on wiping a surface. But then he spoke. "You," he said, pointing at me. My heart skipped a beat. "Me? Do you speak any languages?" I hesitated. That voice inside me got louder, but so did the fear. What if I messed up? What if I embarrassed myself? What if this was a mistake? "A little," I said cautiously. He looked like he didn't have time to question it. "We're out of options. Just come in." And just like that, I found myself stepping into a room I had only ever entered to clean. Inside, The atmosphere was intense. Executives from different countries sat around the table, their expressions serious, their conversations fragmented due to the language barrier. Mr. Carter stood at the head of the table, his frustration barely concealed. "This is the last attempt," he said firmly. "If this doesn't work, the deal is off." I swallowed hard. They started speaking, first in French. Without thinking, I responded, translating smoothly. Then German, then Mandarin. The conversations flowed, overlapping, complex, but, somehow, it all made sense to me. It felt like stepping into a version of myself I hadn't seen in years. The room slowly grew quiet, not because the conversation stopped, but because people were starting to realize what was happening. The janitor was keeping up, no, not just keeping up, leading the communication. I could feel their eyes on me, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. For the first time in years, I felt alive, like everything I had been through, everything I had learned, was finally being seen. And then, right in the middle of it all, I realized something. This moment wasn't just about me. So that's the situation I was in, standing there between worlds, holding something fragile and powerful in my hands. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to think about it. What would you have done? Would you have kept going, risking everything? Or would you have stepped back, afraid of what might come after? Because what happened next changed everything. The meeting lasted over 2 hours. 2 hours of intense discussion, negotiation, and translation. By the end of it, something incredible had happened. The deal was saved. Not just saved, but strengthened. The international partners were impressed, not just by the outcome, but by the unexpected bridge that had formed between them. When it was finally over, the room fell into a heavy silence. Mr. Carter looked at me, really looked at me, like he was seeing me for the first time. "What's your name?" he asked. "Daniel," I said quietly. "Daniel," he repeated. "Why are you cleaning floors?" I didn't know how to answer that. How do you explain a life that took a wrong turn? How do you summarize loss, struggle, and survival in a single sentence? "I needed a job," I said simply. He nodded slowly as if processing something deeper. "Starting tomorrow," he said, "you won't be cleaning floors anymore." I blinked. "Sir, I want you in our international communications team full-time. Benefits. A salary that reflects your skills." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "But there's one condition," he added. My heart tightened. "You don't hide what you can do ever again." I felt something break inside me, but in a good way. Like a wall I had built over years was finally coming down. That night, I went home and told Sophia everything. She listened with wide eyes, her little face lighting up with pride. "I always knew you were amazing, Daddy," she said, hugging me tightly, and in that moment, I realized something important. It wasn't just about the job, or the recognition, or the money. It was about being seen, about not letting fear or circumstances define who you are. Life didn't magically become perfect after that. There were still challenges, still moments of doubt. But things changed. I changed. And sometimes, when I walk past that same conference room, I pause for a second. Not as a cleaner, but as someone who knows their worth. So if there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this. Don't let your current situation convince you that that's all you'll ever be. You never know when life will give you a moment to step forward, and when it does, take it. If you are on my side in this story, go ahead and like this video. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe. I'd love to hear your thoughts too. What would you have done in my place? Share it in the comments below. Thanks for listening. I'll see you all in the next story.